Captain Eris Thorne gripped the edge of the command console as the Athelstan emerged from warp space, the familiar lurch of reversion to normal space sending a shudder through the ship's frame. Outside the observation window, the distant star system glowed with an unusual spectrum, shimmering bands of ultraviolet light dancing around the central star like celestial auroras. "Status report," Thorne ordered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. This was humanity's first deep space mission beyond the Clarius Veil, and the anomalous energy readings they detected from Earth had brought them here to investigate. "All systems nominal, Captain," Lieutenant Commander Eva Rostova replied from the helm. "Warp core stable at 32% capacity. Sensors confirm we're at the coordinates where the energy signatures originated." Dr. Mira Rose, the mission's xenolinguist and first contact specialist, leaned forward in her chair, her dark eyes fixed on the main display. "Those energy patterns, they're unlike anything in our databases. Not natural stellar phenomena, not any known propulsion system. There's structure to them, almost like a language." Thorne nodded, his mind racing. Humanity had spent centuries scanning the cosmos for signs of intelligent life, developing increasingly sophisticated detection systems. The discovery of these structured energy emissions had prompted the United Earth Space Authority to fast-track the Athelstan's mission. Now, standing on the precipice of what might be humanity's first contact with an extraterrestrial civilization, he felt the weight of history pressing down on him. "Dr. Rose, prepare your first contact protocols," he said. "Lieutenant Clara, I want full sensor sweeps of the system. Look for anything that might indicate artificial structures or vessels." "Aye, Captain," Clara responded, her fingers dancing across her console. "Running deep scans now. Initial readings show..." "Wait, Captain, you need to see this." The main display shifted to show a three-dimensional representation of the star system. Where their long-range sensors had detected only energy patterns, the ship's more powerful short-range instruments revealed something astonishing. Thousands of luminous filaments weaving through the system, connecting planets and asteroids in a vast, intricate network. "It's beautiful," Rose whispered, "like strands of light holding the system together." "Not holding it together," Clara corrected, her voice tinged with awe. "They're moving, flowing, like rivers of light." Thorne studied the display, his scientific training struggling to comprehend what he was seeing. The luminous structures weren't physical objects as humans understood them. They seemed to be pure energy, shifting and flowing with purpose. "Any signs of vessels, artificial constructs?" he asked. "Nothing solid," Clara replied. "No hull signatures, no engine emissions we recognize. But these energy patterns, they're definitely intelligent. Look at how they respond to our sensor pulses." As if on cue, the luminous filaments shifted, forming geometric patterns in response to the ship's scanning frequencies. "They're communicating," Rose realized. "They're trying to talk to us." "Open a standard first contact channel," Thorne ordered. "Dr. Rose, let's see if they respond to our greeting protocols." Rose activated the Universal Translator Matrix, sending the carefully constructed message designed to establish basic communication. Mathematical sequences, fundamental physical constants, and representations of atomic structures. The ship's external lights pulsed in rhythmic patterns corresponding to the message. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then the luminous filaments began to shift again, forming complex geometric shapes that seemed to dance in response. "They're responding," Rose exclaimed. "But it's not matching any of our expected patterns. This is something entirely different." Thorne watched as the light patterns grew more intricate, forming what appeared to be three-dimensional shapes that rotated and transformed in space. "Can the translator make sense of it?" Rose shook her head, frustration evident in her expression. "It's not a language as we understand it. It's more like pure concept transmission. They're not using symbols or words. They're conveying meaning directly through the structure of light itself." "Can we respond in kind?" Thorne asked. "I'm trying," Rose said, adjusting her console. "I've programmed the ship's external lighting system to mimic their patterns, but without understanding the meaning behind them." Before she could finish, The luminous filaments suddenly coalesced into a single, brilliant sphere of light that approached the Athelstan. As it drew nearer, the sphere began to pulse with rhythmic intensity. "Captain, energy readings are off the charts," Clara warned. "That thing is emitting more power than our entire ship." "Shields up, but keep them at minimal," Thorne ordered. "We don't want to appear hostile." The sphere of light stopped approximately 1 kilometer from the Athelstan, its pulsations growing more rapid. Then, without warning, tendrils of light extended toward the ship, passing through the hull as if it weren't there. "Report," Thorne barked. "Nothing's penetrating the hull, Captain," Clara said, checking her instruments. "The energy is passing through us like we're not even here. Wait, sensors show it's scanning the entire ship, every compartment, every system." "Can they see us?" Rose asked, her voice tight with concern. "I think so," Clara replied. "But I don't think they understand what they're seeing." Thorne watched as the light tendrils moved through the bridge, passing through his crew members as if they were ghosts. One of the tendrils paused near Lieutenant Rostova, hovering for a moment before continuing its examination. "They're studying us," Rose realized. "But I don't think they recognize us as intelligent beings." "Why not?" Thorne asked. "Look at them," Rose said, gesturing toward the main display. "They exist as pure energy. To them, we're just matter, trapped in physical form. They might not even perceive consciousness in material beings." Thorne considered this. The fundamental assumption behind all human first contact protocols was that intelligent life would recognize other intelligent life. But what if an advanced civilization had evolved beyond physical form and no longer understood intelligence as it manifested in corporeal beings? "Dr. Rose, can you develop a way to communicate that they might understand?" he asked. "I'll try," she said, already working at her console. "But we need to demonstrate intelligence in a way they'll recognize." "Captain," Clara interrupted, "the energy readings are changing. The entire network is shifting. It's like they're reacting to something." On the display, the luminous filaments were rearranging themselves into new patterns, forming what appeared to be a vast, intricate web surrounding the Athelstan. "They're surrounding us," Thorne realized. "Are they preparing to attack?" "I don't think so," Rose said, studying the patterns. "It's more like containment or protection. They might be trying to help us." "Help us how?" Rostova asked. Rose's expression turned grim. "If they see our physical forms as a limitation, as a prison, they might be trying to free us." Thorne understood immediately. "You mean they might try to convert us to energy?" "Precisely," Rose nodded. "And if they succeed, we'd cease to exist as we are. Our consciousness might not survive the transition." "Can we stop them?" Rostova asked. "We don't even know how they're doing it," Clara said. "Their technology, if that's what it is, operates on principles we don't understand." Thorne made a decision. "Dr. Rose, focus on developing a communication method they'll understand. Lieutenant Clara, monitor their energy patterns for any indication of what they're planning. Lieutenant Rostova, prepare the ship for possible evasive maneuvers, but don't initiate any aggressive actions. We need to show them we're intelligent without threatening them." As his crew sprang into action, Thorne stared at the luminous sphere outside his ship. Humanity had dreamed of first contact for centuries, but no one had ever considered the possibility that an advanced civilization might not recognize humans as intelligent beings simply because they existed in physical form. The true challenge wasn't technological, it was philosophical. How do you prove you're intelligent to beings who don't recognize your form of intelligence? 3 days passed with no significant change in the situation. The luminous beings, which the crew had begun calling Luminari, continued the gentle but persistent attempts to interact with the Athelstan. They had formed a stable network around the ship, their light patterns constantly shifting but never threatening. Dr. Rose had made some progress. By carefully analyzing the Luminari's light patterns, she had identified what appeared to be basic concepts: unity, connection, and transformation. She had programmed the ship's external lighting system to mimic these patterns, adding subtle variations that suggested individuality and independent thought. "Captain, I think I'm onto something," Rose said during their daily briefing. She brought up a display showing complex light patterns. "The Luminari communicate through what I've come to call light syntax. The arrangement, intensity, and frequency of light pulses convey meaning. It's not sequential like our languages. It's simultaneous and multidimensional." Thorne studied the display. "Can we use this to communicate with them?" "I've been trying," Rose replied. "I've programmed the ship to generate light patterns that express basic concepts. We are here. We think. We feel. But I think we need to demonstrate something more. Fundamentally intelligent." "Like what?" Rostova asked. "Something that shows the value of physical existence," Rose said. "The Luminari seem to view matter as a limitation, something to be transcended. But physical form enables experiences they might not understand. Art, emotion, and the simple joy of sensory perception." Thorne considered this. "Can we demonstrate that through light patterns?" "Not directly," Rose admitted. "But perhaps if we show them something uniquely human, something that only makes sense in physical form." "Like what?" Clara asked. "Music," Rose said suddenly. "Or art. Something that expresses emotion through a physical medium." Thorne nodded. "Do it. Find a way to translate human art into light patterns they might understand." As Rose left to work on her idea, Thorne turned to Clara. "Any new developments on their energy network?" Clara brought up a detailed sensor analysis. "Captain, I've discovered something fascinating. The Luminari aren't just energy. They're structured energy. Their network operates on principles that seem to combine quantum mechanics and something beyond. It's like they've mastered the fundamental forces of the universe in ways we can barely comprehend. Can you determine how they're maintaining their form?" Clara shook her head. "Not really. It's as if they exist in multiple states simultaneously. Wave and particle, local and non-local. They're not just using quantum principles. They seem to have evolved beyond them." Thorne absorbed this information. Humanity's most advanced physics was based on understanding and manipulating quantum phenomena. The Luminari appeared to have transcended even that level of understanding. "Keep monitoring them," he said. "If they're planning to free us from our physical forms, I want to know before they act." Over the next 2 days, Rose worked tirelessly to develop a way to communicate human artistic expression through light. She started with music, converting the complex waveforms of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony into corresponding light frequencies and patterns. The ship's external lighting system pulsed with the translated symphony, sending ripples of colored light into the Luminari network. The response was immediate, but puzzling. The Luminari patterns shifted, but not in recognition, more in confusion. The light network seemed to ripple with what could only be described as bewilderment. "They don't understand," Rose reported, frustration evident in her voice. "Music, as we experience it, requires time and requires physical vibration in a medium. To them, who exist outside linear time and without physical constraints, the concept seems meaningless." Thorne considered this setback. "What about visual art? Something that exists in space rather than time?" Rose brightened. "That might work. Let me try translating a painting. Something with emotional depth." She chose Van Gogh's Starry Night, converting the swirling colors and textures into corresponding light patterns. The Ethelstan's external lights began to project the translated artwork into space. This time, the Luminari responded differently. Their network shifted, forming patterns that seemed to mirror the emotional content of the painting. Swirls of light that echoed Van Gogh's turbulent sky. "They're responding," Clara exclaimed. "Look at how their patterns are changing. It's like they're engaging with the emotional content." Rose watched the display, hope growing in her eyes. "They're beginning to understand. The painting isn't just visual, it expresses human emotion. the experience of being physical beings who feel wonder and awe at the universe. Over the next several hours, Rose refined her approach, sending increasingly complex artistic expressions into the Luminari network. She included poetry converted to light patterns, dance movements translated to spatial sequences, and even the sensation of touch represented through varying light intensities. The Luminari's responses grew more sophisticated. Their light patterns began to incorporate elements of the human expressions, creating something new, a fusion of Luminari and human aesthetics. "Captain," Rose said during their evening briefing, her eyes shining with excitement, "I think we're making a breakthrough. The Luminari aren't just responding, they're creating. They're taking our expressions and adding their own interpretations." Thorne studied the latest sensor data. "What does this mean for our situation?" "I think they're beginning to understand that physical existence has value," Rose explained. "That consciousness in matter isn't a limitation but a different way of experiencing the universe." Clara added, "Their energy network has changed too. It's less uniform, more varied. It's like they're incorporating elements of human creativity into their own structure." Thorne felt a surge of hope. Perhaps first contact was possible after all, not as humans had imagined it, with two physical civilizations meeting as equals, but as a meeting of fundamentally different forms of existence. "Keep working on this, Doctor," he said. "If we can establish mutual understanding, we might prevent whatever help they were planning to give us." As the days passed, the communication between humans and Luminari grew more sophisticated. Rose developed a rudimentary light language that combined elements of both species' communication methods. Through this hybrid language, they began to exchange basic concepts. The Luminari revealed themselves to be the luminous collective, beings who had evolved from a physical species millions of years ago. They had transcended matter to exist as pure energy, believing this was the natural progression of all intelligent life. Their encounter with the Athelstan had confused them. Here was a species that had developed space travel while still bound to physical form. Through painstaking communication, Rose and Thorne worked to explain the value of physical existence, the richness of sensory experience, the depth of emotion that came from biological processes, and the creative potential that emerged from the limitations of matter. In return, the Luminari shared glimpses of their own existence, the unity of consciousness, the ability to perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously, and the profound understanding of the universe that came from existing beyond physical constraints. One day, as Rose was working on a particularly complex translation of human emotional states, something extraordinary happened. A single strand of the Luminari network separated from the main structure and approached the Athelstan. Unlike previous encounters, this strand of light didn't pass through the ship. It stopped at the hull, pulsing with a distinctive pattern. "Captain, you need to see this," Clara called. Thorne joined her at the sensor console. "What is it?" "It's different," Clara said. "This pattern, it's using our hybrid language, but with something new. It's personal, individual." Thorne watched as the light pattern formed a sequence they had developed to represent identity, followed by a unique signature pattern unlike any they had seen before. "It's introducing itself," Rose realized, rushing to join them. "This Luminari is establishing individual identity, something they don't normally do. In their collective existence, individuality isn't necessary." The light pattern continued, forming what their translation matrix interpreted as "I am Kaelen." "Kaelen," Rose repeated softly. "They've given themselves a name." Over the next hours, Kaelen, the individual Luminari, communicated with the crew in ways the collective network had not. They expressed curiosity about physical existence, asking questions about what it meant to have a body, to experience time linearly, and to feel emotions through biological processes. Through Kaelen, the crew learned that the Luminari had never encountered a species that had achieved space travel while remaining physical. Their own history showed that all intelligent life eventually transcended matter. The process was seen as inevitable, as natural as a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. But what if some species don't want to transcend? Rose asked through their light language. What if physical existence has value in itself? Kaelen's light pattern shifted, displaying what their translation matrix interpreted as confusion. The concept was apparently alien to Luminari thinking. Thorne watched this exchange with growing concern. If the Luminari saw physical existence as a temporary stage that all species must pass through, they might believe they were doing humanity a favor by helping them transcend whether they wanted to or not. Dr. Rose, he said quietly, we need to make them understand that we value our physical existence, that we don't want to be freed from it. I'm trying, Rose replied, her expression strained. But how do you explain the beauty of a sunset to a being who has never had eyes? The warmth of a handshake to something that has never had skin? The answer came unexpectedly during a routine crew activity. The ship's hydroponics bay had been producing fresh vegetables for the crew's meals, and that day they were harvesting tomatoes, small, red, and perfectly ripe. As Thorne watched Ensign Park carefully pick the fruit, an idea struck him. Dr. Rose, can you capture the sensory experience of eating one of these tomatoes? He asked. Rose looked puzzled. What do you mean? Everything. The color, the texture, the taste, the smell. Can you translate that multi-sensory experience into light patterns they might understand? Rose's eyes widened as she grasped his meaning. I can try. It won't be perfect. Our light language can't convey taste directly, but I can represent the emotional and sensory experience. Over the next several hours, Rose worked with the crew to document the full sensory experience of eating a fresh tomato. They described the cool smoothness of the skin, the slight resistance when biting into it, the burst of flavor, and the earthy aroma. Rose converted these descriptions into a complex light pattern that attempted to capture not just the physical sensations, but the emotional resonance. The simple joy of experiencing something fresh and natural in the sterile environment of a starship. When the pattern was transmitted, Kaelen's response was immediate and profound. The light signature shifted dramatically, displaying patterns the translation matrix interpreted as surprise, curiosity, and wonder. For the first time, the Luminari seemed to grasp something fundamental about physical existence, not as a limitation, but as a source of unique experiences and emotions. Over the following days, the crew worked with Rose to create more sensory translations, the feeling of rain on skin, the warmth of sunlight, and the comfort of a hug. Each translation helped the Luminari understand aspects of physical existence they had never considered valuable. Kaelen became a bridge between the two species, sharing Luminari perspectives on unity and interconnectedness while learning about the richness of individual experience in physical form. Then came the crisis. Clara detected a massive energy buildup in the Luminari network. Captain, something's happening. The entire network is shifting, converging on our position. Thorne rushed to the sensor console. What's going on? It looks like they're preparing to do something, Clara said, her voice tight with concern. The energy patterns match what we observed before they first scanned us, but amplified 1,000-fold. Thorne understood immediately. They're preparing to free us from our physical forms. He turned to Rose. Can you reach Kaelen? Warn them what they're doing. Rose was already working at her console, sending urgent light patterns into the network. I'm trying, but the network is in chaos. Kaelen's signature is hard to find. Thorne made a decision. All hands, brace for possible energy surge. Lieutenant Rostova, prepare to initiate emergency warp if necessary, but only as a last resort. The bridge crew moved to their stations, tension thick in the air. On the main display, the Luminari network was coalescing into a single, brilliant sphere of light that was rapidly approaching the Athelstan. Kaelen, Rose called out, her fingers flying over her console. We need to talk. Suddenly, a single strand of light broke away from the main sphere and approached the ship. It pulsed with Kaelen's distinctive pattern. They're going to transform you, Kaelen's translated message read. They believe it's what you need. Why? Thorne demanded through Rose's translation system. We've shown you the value of physical existence. They don't understand. Kaelen's pattern shifted with what the translation matrix interpreted as sadness. To them, physical form is suffering. They see your bodies as prisons. They believe they're helping. Can you stop them? Rose asked. I am only one, Kaelen replied. The collective has decided. Thorne thought quickly. Kaelen, show them what we showed you. Show them the tomato. Show them the rain. Show them why physical existence matters. Kaelen's light pattern shifted rapidly, displaying patterns the crew interpreted as intense thought. Then, the single strand of light shot back toward the main sphere. On the display, they watched as Kaelen's light pattern began to weave through the massive energy structure, intermingling with the collective's patterns. What's happening? Clara asked. I think Kaelen is trying to communicate with the entire collective, Rose said, watching the shifting light patterns, showing them what we've shared. The main sphere of light began to pulse differently, its rhythm changing from the steady, unified pattern to something more varied, more complex. They're hesitating, Thorne realized. Kaelen's reaching them. But the energy buildup continued. The sensors showed the Luminari network reaching critical levels. They're still preparing to act, Clara warned. We're running out of time. Thorne made a decision. Dr. Rose, initiate emergency protocol Theta. Full sensory transmission. Everything we've learned about physical existence, all at once. Rose didn't hesitate. She activated the program she had been developing in secret. A comprehensive translation of human sensory and emotional experience, designed to flood the Luminari network with the full richness of physical existence. The Ethelstan's external lighting system blazed to life, projecting a complex, multi-layered light pattern into the Luminari network. It wasn't just visual. It incorporated audio frequencies converted to light vibrations, temperature variations represented through color shifts, and even the sensation of touch translated to light intensity gradients. For the first time, the Luminari were being shown what it meant to be physical, not as a concept, but as a lived experience. The effect was immediate and profound. The massive sphere of light stopped its approach, its pulsations becoming erratic. The light patterns shifted wildly, displaying what the translation matrix interpreted as confusion, surprise, and revelation. Then, something extraordinary happened. The sphere began to break apart, not in retreat, but in transformation. The unified light structure fragmented into thousands of individual strands, each displaying unique patterns, some mirroring human expressions, others creating something entirely new. The collective is individualizing, Rose realized. They're experiencing what it means to be separate, to have an individual perspective. On the sensor display, the energy readings began to stabilize. The critical buildup was dissipating. They're stopping, Clara confirmed. The transformation energy is subsiding. A single strand of light approached the ship, Kaelen's signature pattern. They understand now. Kaelen's translated message read, Physical existence is not suffering. It is different, valuable in its own way. Thorne felt a wave of relief so intense it nearly buckled his knees. Thank you, Kaelen. You saved us. Not me. Kaelen's pattern shifted. You showed us something we had forgotten. That intelligence takes many forms. That existence has many paths. Over the following weeks, a true dialogue began between humans and Luminari. The collective, now calling themselves the Many Lights, restructured their society to acknowledge the validity of different forms of existence. They shared their understanding of the universe, while the humans shared the richness of physical experience. The Athelstan became a center of exchange, with human crew members teaching Luminari about art, music, and emotion, while Luminari shared their knowledge of energy manipulation and cosmic structure. One day, as Thorne watched Rose and Kaelen collaborate on a new form of light-based art that combined human creativity with Luminari energy manipulation, he realized something profound. First contact had never been about finding civilizations similar to humanity. It had been about discovering that intelligence, in all its forms, was a cosmic constant, a thread connecting all conscious beings, whether they existed as matter or energy, as individuals or as collectives. The universe was vaster and more wondrous than humanity had ever imagined, filled with ways of being that defied their understanding. And in that vastness, the most important discovery wasn't technological superiority or cosmic dominance. It was the recognition that all forms of intelligence, all ways of experiencing existence, had value. As the many lights wove their luminous patterns around the Athelstan, creating a tapestry of light that blended human and Luminari aesthetics, Thorne understood that humanity's journey to the stars wasn't about conquering the cosmos. It was about learning to listen, to hear the silent songs of matter and energy, and to recognize intelligence in all its infinite, beautiful forms. The silence of matter was not emptiness. It was a different kind of music, waiting to be heard.